The courtroom fell silent as the gavel slammed down, echoing through the vaulted chamber. All eyes locked on the defense attorney, Elena, whose face bore the weight of both exhaustion and steely determination. The judge's declaration shattered the tense air. The court admits this new evidence. Murmurs rippled through the packed room as a small weathered notebook was placed on the evidence table. Elena whispered under her breath, "This could change everything." Across the room, the prosecutor's jaw tightened, his confidence wavering for the first time. Outside the courtroom, the rain hammered relentlessly, mirroring the storm brewing within these walls. The case was no longer about mere facts. It was about justice, betrayal, and the fragile truth hidden beneath layers of deceit. Elena carefully flipped through the fragile pages of the notebook, her eyes scanning hastily scribbled notes and cryptic symbols. The air was thick with anticipation as the courtroom leaned in to catch every detail. This was no ordinary evidence. It was a confession penned in desperation, exposing a hidden network of corruption that threatened to topple the very pillars of the justice system. Across the aisle, Detective Morales exchanged a knowing glance with Elena, years of silent investigation culminating in this explosive moment. "We've just opened Pandora's box," he murmured under his breath. The courtroom felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves were closing in, swallowing the truth alive. The murmurs swelled into a tense hum as Elena rose, her voice steady but charged with urgency. "Your Honor, this notebook contains undeniable proof that the prosecution withheld critical evidence," she declared, eyes locking onto the prosecutor with unwavering resolve. The courtroom gasped, the atmosphere thick with disbelief and rising anger. The judge's gaze hardened, signaling the trial had entered uncharted territory. Outside, the rain intensified, pounding against the courthouse windows like the relentless pressure bearing down on everyone inside. Elena's fight was no longer just legal. It was personal, a battle against a system built to protect the powerful at the expense of the innocent. The prosecutor strode to the lectern, his voice rising in controlled fury. "This so-called evidence is nothing but a desperate fabrication," he asserted, eyes blazing with defiance. Yet beneath his bravado, cracks showed, a flicker of doubt, a hesitation betrayed by a brief glance at his notes. Elena's gaze never wavered. She knew this was the moment the fragile facade would begin to crumble. The courtroom held its breath as the judge called for a recess, the tension palpable and suffocating. Outside, the storm broke, lightning illuminating the courthouse in brief, stark flashes, an ominous herald of the battles yet to come. As the courtroom emptied for recess, Elena retreated to a quiet hallway, the notebook clutched tightly in her hands. Detective Morales appeared beside her, voice low and urgent. "I'll do everything to bury this, Elena. We have to be ready." She nodded, determination hardening like steel. This case was no longer just about winning. It was about exposing a rot that festered deep within the justice system. The distant rumble of thunder echoed their resolve, a promise that no matter the cost, the truth would be unearthed. Elena's eyes flashed with a fierce light. This was the first step in a journey that would shake the legal world to its core. The courtroom reconvened with an uneasy hush, the weight of the notebook's revelations still lingering. Elena presented a new witness, Marcus, a whistleblower with trembling hands and haunted eyes. "I saw them," Marcus said quietly. "The people behind the cover-up, pulling strings in the shadows." His testimony sent ripples through the room, forcing even the judge to lean forward, intrigued and wary. The prosecutor's glare hardened, sweat gathering at his temple. Outside, the storm had mellowed, leaving a damp chill that seeped through the courthouse walls. Elena's voice rose with conviction. "The truth is no longer hidden. It demands justice." This was the turning point, a fracture beginning to crack the facade of power. As Marcus recounted secret meetings and whispered threats, Elena's mind raced to connect every detail. Her eyes locked on Detective Morales, who nodded subtly from his seat. Each word peeled back layers of conspiracy, implicating figures once considered untouchable. The courtroom buzzed with tension as evidence of bribery and intimidation unfolded. "They wanted to silence me," Marcus whispered, voice breaking. Elena clenched her fists, feeling the enormity of the fight ahead. The prosecutor shifted uneasily, his usual bravado dimming. The weight of truth was pressing hard now, threatening to overturn not just this trial but the entire system it represented. The defense laid bare a trail of manipulated evidence and coerced testimonies, projecting a chilling montage of deceit onto the courtroom's screens. Elena's voice cut through the silence. This isn't just a case. It's a fight for the soul of justice. The gallery gasped as video clips showed high-ranking officials meeting in dimly lit rooms, exchanging envelopes and whispered words. The prosecutor struggled to maintain control, his protests drowned by the undeniable proof. Outside, the afternoon sun broke through clouds, casting a stark light on the courthouse steps, symbolic of hope amid the encroaching darkness. Elena's relentless pursuit was igniting a fire that no lie could extinguish. The prosecutor, desperate, called a surprise rebuttal witness, a young legal clerk, nervous but resolute. "I never meant to lie," she confessed, "but I was told to alter the files." Her admission sent shockwaves through the courtroom, shaking the prosecution's foundation. Elena watched silently, the scales of justice tipping closer to balance. The judge's eyes reflected the growing turmoil. This trial was unraveling at the seams. Outside, a breeze swept through the courthouse plaza, scattering fallen leaves like the fragile truths now exposed. Every corner of the legal world would feel the tremors of this confession, changing lives forever. Recess fell over the courtroom like a heavy fog, but the battle had only just begun. Elena and Detective Morales, huddled in a dim conference room, their faces illuminated by the cold glow of a laptop screen, showing newly uncovered documents. "They're deeper in this than we thought," Morales warned. Elena's fingers tapped the table, each knock a beat in the war drums of justice. "Then we dig deeper," she replied, eyes blazing with determination. Outside, twilight draped the city in shadow, but inside a spark of hope ignited, a promise that no matter how dark the night, truth would find its dawn. The courtroom settled into an uneasy silence as Elena called her next witness, a forensic accountant named Dr. Malik. With sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, Malik laid out the intricate web of financial fraud that tied the corrupt officials to the case. "Follow the money," he said, pointing to complex charts and bank records projected on the screen. The prosecution's confidence visibly faltered as each transaction exposed a deeper level of deceit. The judge leaned in, absorbing the revelation with furrowed brows. Outside, clouds gathered once more, casting a gray pallor over the courthouse. Elena's voice echoed with quiet power. "Truth doesn't hide in numbers. It demands accountability." As Malik spoke, Elena's mind raced with strategy, each figure unraveling years of carefully crafted lies. Suddenly, a whispered commotion rose from the prosecution's table. Elena turned sharply to see a junior prosecutor passing a folded note to the lead, their faces tense. The note was a lifeline, a new piece of evidence not yet disclosed. Elena's heart pounded. This battle was far from over. She met Morales' steady gaze, both understanding the stakes had escalated. The courtroom's atmosphere thickened with anticipation as the judge called for a short recess. Outside, a stiff breeze bent the branches of bare trees, mirroring the turmoil inside. During the recess, Elena and Morales pored over the prosecution's unexpected evidence, a shaky video clip suggesting a potential witness had lied under oath. "If true, this could discredit our entire case," Morales warned grimly. Elena's fingers drummed the table, tension coiling tight like a spring ready to snap. But the truth was never simple. "We'll find out," she said resolutely, "and if they're hiding more, we'll expose it." The courthouse halls felt colder now, shadows stretching long as dusk approached. The line between ally and adversary blurred, and Elena knew the battle for justice demanded relentless vigilance. Back in court, the defense called the questioned witness to the stand. Her hands trembled as she faced the judge and jury, the weight of the video clip heavy in the air. "I was pressured to lie," she admitted softly, eyes downcast. Gasps filled the courtroom, the prosecution's case unraveling thread by thread. Elena's heart pounded not just for victory, but for the fragile courage it took to speak truth in the face of fear. The judge nodded solemnly, signaling the gravity of the confession. Outside, the first stars blinked through a clearing sky, silent witnesses to a truth finally beginning to shine. As the day wound down, Elena stood before the courtroom, her voice steady and unwavering. "This case is not merely about guilt or innocence. It's about restoring faith in our system," she said, locking eyes with every juror. The prosecution sat defeated, their facade crumbling like dry stone. The judge's gaze softened, reflecting the monumental shift this trial had sparked. Outside, night blanketed the city, but inside the courthouse, a fragile hope took root. Elena's resolve hardened. This was only the beginning. Justice was no longer a distant ideal. It was a hard-won reality, forged in courage and unyielding truth. The courtroom buzzed with a tense energy as Elena introduced a surprise expert witness, Dr. Harper, a forensic psychologist known for unveiling hidden motives. His steady voice cut through the chatter. "This case reveals not just legal failings, but psychological manipulation designed to silence truth." Elena's gaze never wavered as Harper detailed the psychological pressure tactics used against witnesses, exposing a chilling pattern of intimidation. The prosecutor's jaw tightened, his earlier confidence waning further. The judge's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Outside, gray clouds gathered again, casting restless shadows over the courthouse. The case was morphing into something bigger, a battle not just for facts, but for the very integrity of human will. Dr. Harper's testimony pierced the courtroom's veil of certainty. Elena watched as jurors leaned forward, absorbing every word about fear's corrosive power. Suddenly, the prosecutor interjected sharply, attempting to discredit Harper with a barrage of legal jargon and skepticism. Yet his words fell flat against the weight of scientific truth. Elena countered smoothly, "Facts don't lie. And neither do the shattered lives in this case." The judge called for order, the tension palpable. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling ancient courthouse doors as if echoing the turmoil within. This trial was no longer just legal. It was a fight for the very soul of justice itself. The defense presented newly uncovered communications, emails and texts between high-ranking officials, revealing a deliberate campaign to manipulate key witnesses. Elena's voice was fierce. "This is not coincidence. This is conspiracy." The courtroom erupted in murmurs as the evidence laid bare the rot beneath the system's surface. The prosecutor's face paled, his defenses crumbling under the weight of undeniable proof. The judge's hammer hovered uncertainly above the bench, the moment pregnant with consequence. Outside, a sudden downpour drenched the city streets, matching the courtroom's growing storm of revelations. The battle lines had been drawn, and neither side would relent. In a bold move, Elena called the case's most unexpected witness, a former insider who had once been part of the corrupt inner circle. His voice was steady, but filled with remorse. "I was blind to the damage we caused." As he detailed the inner workings of the conspiracy, the courtroom hung on every word. The prosecutor struggled to mask his growing desperation. The judge's expression softened with the weight of truth and redemption, intertwined. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, punctuating the moment's gravity. This confession was a crack in the fortress of lies, a turning point that could topple the corrupt empire. As the day drew to a close, Elena's closing remarks rang out with quiet power. "Justice is fragile, but not fragile enough to be broken by fear and deceit." The courtroom was hushed, every listener captivated by the truth she had woven. The prosecutor sat defeated, the once imposing fortress now a crumbling shell. The judge's gavel hovered, the verdict looming like a heavy cloud. Outside, the storm began to subside, leaving a calm that felt both eerie and hopeful. Elena's heart steadied with resolve. No matter the outcome, the fight for justice had already ignited a fire no corruption could extinguish. The courtroom waited in tense anticipation as the jury filed back in, their faces unreadable masks of deliberation. Elena's hands clenched the edge of the podium, the weight of months of struggle pressing on her. The judge called the court to order and asked for the foreperson's verdict. A hush fell as the foreperson stood, voice steady but heavy. "We find the defendant." The words hung in the air like a storm about to break. Outside, the afternoon sun pierced through clearing skies, casting long beams through the courtroom windows. Hope and dread entwined. Elena's breath caught, the fate of justice balanced on a razor's edge. The foreperson's voice cut sharply through the silence, guilty on all counts. Collective gasp swept the room. The prosecution leaned forward, stunned into silence, while Elena closed her eyes briefly, a mixture of relief and exhaustion flooding her. The judge nodded solemnly, his gavel poised but still. The courtroom erupted in a whirlwind of whispered conversations, some hopeful, others shocked. Elena felt the weight of victory, but also the shadow of sacrifice it carried. Outside, the sun now shone bright, illuminating the courthouse steps, a symbol that truth had prevailed, yet the journey toward justice was far from over. After the verdict, Elena was approached by reporters eager for a statement. Her voice was calm but resolute. "This verdict is a victory for those silenced, for the truth that refused to be buried." Her eyes scanned the crowd, filled with a mixture of hope and determination. The prosecutor avoided her gaze, retreating into the shadows of defeat. Meanwhile, Detective Morales stood by Elena's side, silently offering steady support. The legal world had been shaken, but this was only the first ripple of change. Outside, a gentle breeze stirred fallen leaves, carrying whispers of justice into the wider world. Later that evening, Elena sat alone in her office, the day's victory sinking in. The silence was profound, broken only by the soft ticking of a clock. She stared at the framed photo of her late mentor, who had inspired her fight for justice. "We did it," she whispered, a tear tracing down her cheek. But even in triumph, a shadow lingered, the knowledge that the system was flawed, still vulnerable. Outside, city lights flickered through rain-soaked windows, a quiet reminder that the battle was far from over. Elena's resolve deepened. This case had been a spark, but the fire for true justice was only beginning to burn. As midnight approached, Elena received a mysterious phone call. The voice on the other end was low, urgent. "You think this is over? It's just the beginning." Her eyes widened, heart pounding anew. The case had opened doors she never imagined, revealing enemies lurking in unexpected places. Elena tightened her grip on the phone, a fierce fire igniting within her. "Then I'll be ready," she said firmly, voice steady despite the storm raging inside. Outside, thunder rolled once again, a stark reminder that justice is a relentless fight, and Elena was prepared to face it head-on, no matter the cost. The courthouse was bathed in the soft golden light of dawn as Elena arrived, her footsteps steady but heavy with the burden of the mysterious phone call from the night before. She found Morales waiting in the quiet courtyard, the cold morning air sharp against their faces. He spoke gravely. "They've mobilized, Elena. Powerful forces you never imagined are working to silence us, discredit you, intimidate witnesses, and smother the fire we lit." Elena's eyes hardened. "Then we move faster. We expose everything before they can." Around them, the courthouse stood proud and immovable, yet Elena felt the invisible threat pressing close, like a shadow creeping over the pillars of justice. Today, the fight would escalate beyond anything they'd faced. In a dimly lit conference room away from prying eyes, Elena gathered her closest allies, their faces etched with exhaustion but burning with unyielding resolve. The table before them was strewn with files, laptops glowing softly in the low light. Elena's voice was firm and urgent. "They will attack from every side, media smears, legal loopholes, even threats to those we protect. We must be ready." Maps, phone records, and financial trails were traced carefully, every piece a potential key to unravel the corruption still lurking unseen. Each ally nodded, understanding that their fight had grown beyond the courtroom. It was now a battle for survival, integrity, and the future of justice itself. Outside, the city hummed obliviously beneath an evening sky turning dusky purple. Back inside the courtroom, the atmosphere had shifted palpably. The prosecution, rattled but unyielding, unleashed a barrage of legal maneuvers designed to trip Elena at every step. Their rhetoric was sharp, veiled threats disguised as procedural objections, and a concerted effort to sway public opinion through planted media leaks. Elena stood her ground, her voice unwavering, but her body tense from the ceaseless barrage. Her thoughts flickered to the faces of silenced witnesses and betrayed victims counting on her. The judge watched with a furrowed brow, struggling to maintain order amidst the chaos. Outside, heavy clouds churned ominously, thunder rumbling like distant warnings. The courtroom had become a war zone, and Elena's resolve was the only barrier shielding truth from collapse. Amid the mounting pressure, Elena found a rare quiet moment in the courthouse's shadowed hallways. Leaning against a cold stone pillar, she confided in Morales, her voice raw with vulnerability. "There are days I wonder if this is worth the cost," she admitted, eyes flickering with fatigue. Morales met her gaze with steady reassurance. "If not you, then who? This system needs someone willing to stand, no matter how deep the darkness." Elena drew a slow breath, steeling herself against the storm. "Then we keep fighting," she said firmly. "For every truth buried, there is a light that refuses to be extinguished." Outside, a single ray of sunlight pierced through gathering clouds, a fragile beacon in the encroaching gloom. Inside, despite the storm raging around her, Elena's spirit burned fiercer than ever. As the trial hurtled toward its climax, an explosive revelation shook the courtroom to its core. Elena produced new documents, detailed and damning, that exposed collusion at the highest echelons, names previously deemed untouchable, now stained with corruption. Her voice rang clear and commanding. "Justice demands that no one stands above the law. Every wall of deception must fall." The courtroom erupted into murmurs of shock and disbelief. The prosecution scrambling to mitigate the damage, but the tide had turned irrevocably. The judge's eyes reflected a mixture of concern and determination. Outside, a fierce thunderstorm split the darkened sky, lightning illuminating the courthouse windows in stark flashes, nature itself bearing witness to the monumental battle raging within. Elena stood tall, ready to confront the final darkness. The final day of the trial dawned heavy with anticipation, the courtroom cloaked in a solemn hush as Elena took her place at the defense podium. Every moment of the long battle, the sleepless nights, the whispered threats, the mounting evidence, culminated here. Outside, the sky was a thick gray canvas, mirroring the tension thickening the air inside. The judge's gaze swept the room, commanding silence as the jury settled in their seats, faces etched with fatigue and determination. Elena's thoughts flickered to the countless people whose lives hung in the balance, their hopes tethered to her words and the jury's decision. The atmosphere was electric, the weight of justice poised to tip one way or the other, ready to echo far beyond these walls. The foreperson rose slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down like a physical force. "We find the defendant." Their voice trembled, and time seemed to suspend, every breath held captive by anticipation. Elena's heart thundered, memories of every twist and turn flashing through her mind. The lies confronted, the courage summoned, the allies gained and lost. Then the words came, cutting through the silence like a lightning strike. "Not guilty on all charges." The courtroom erupted. Some sobbed in relief, others sat frozen, disbelief etched deeply on their faces. The prosecutor's clenched jaw betrayed his rage and defeat. Outside, the clouds parted, releasing brilliant sunlight that poured in like a benediction, bathing the courtroom in a golden glow. Justice, fragile but triumphant, had prevailed. The judge's gavel struck sharply, its echo reverberating through the silent courtroom like a verdict of its own, a signal that the storm had passed but the ripple effects would endure. Elena stepped forward, her voice breaking the hush, clear and resolute. "This verdict belongs not only to me, but to every silenced voice, every injustice that dared to go unheard." Around her, jurors nodded solemnly. The spectators breathed a collective sigh of release. Morales stood quietly by her side, pride shining in his eyes, a silent testament to their shared struggle. Yet beneath the surface of celebration lay a deeper truth. The legal system, though shaken, still bore scars, and vigilance was the price of every victory. As Elena exited the courtroom, she was met by a swelling crowd of supporters, voices united in hope, the first glimmers of change sparked by her fight. Later that night, Elena found herself alone on a rooftop terrace, overlooking the vast cityscape glittering under a star-studded sky. The sounds of the city, the distant hum of traffic, faint chatter, the occasional siren, felt both distant and intimate. The weight of the trial settled over her like a mantle, heavy yet firm. She cradled a cup of tea, its warmth grounding her as memories cascaded. The betrayals, the victories, the quiet moments of doubt, and the fierce determination that had carried her through. The breeze teased her hair, carrying the promise of tomorrow and the unspoken challenge ahead. Her phone buzzed softly with congratulations, yet her gaze remained fixed on the horizon. "This is just the beginning," she whispered, a vow to continue the relentless pursuit of truth amid the shadows. In the stillness of the late night, Elena's phone vibrated again, a message from an unknown number. Her eyes narrowed as she read the cryptic warning. "The case may be closed, but deeper shadows await." A flicker of unease sparked in her chest, quickly stoked into a familiar fire. Justice was never neat or final. It was a relentless, twisting path that demanded unwavering courage. Elena's fingers tightened around the phone, her mind already racing ahead to battles yet unseen. "Then I'll be ready," she vowed aloud, voice steady despite the storm swelling inside. The night air pressed cool against her skin as she rose, stepping into the darkness and uncertainty ahead. The legal world had been shaken to its core, but Elena knew the tremors would echo forever, calling forth new warriors to rise.